I'm a plant evolutionary ecologist, and I've got two main areas of research. So the first thing I'm interested in is species interactions, and particularly how the underlying genetics of a species influences the way it interacts with other species. And I'm also interested in understanding biodiversity, so understanding how important species diversity is, or genetic diversity within a species, and how both those things influence the way natural communities are structured and respond to change. Food's really important, mainly because the human population is growing so quickly, and there are going to be huge numbers of people around, all of whom need to eat. It's also quite important because that means that there's a lot of pressure on our land, and there's lots of things that we want from our land. So we want to produce food, but we also need places to live, and we also need natural areas to provide us with some of the ecosystem services that we want, such as pollination of our crops and production of fruit. So my work looking at how species interacts can help us to understand some of these issues. So we know that the underlying genetics of an individual species influences, for example, what pathogens will interact with it, and potentially also what pollinators might interact with it. And both of those things are very important for producing crops, so determining yield in plants. And if you're a farmer trying to grow food, it's yield that's actually really important. So it's the combination of species that are interacting that will help to determine this, as well as the environment that they grow in. Collaboration is really important to me, and I couldn't do what I do without it. So a lot of the experiments that I do are very big and require quite a lot of people to collect the data that I need. But more than that, when you're thinking about issues like food and increasing food production, it's not just about increasing the yield on a plant. So I'm a biologist and I'm interested in species and species interactions, but that's just one small part of really of the journey that takes crops from the field to our kitchen. And so without collaboration, I don't think you can address big questions. I've recently started to work on plant pollinator interactions, and at the moment I'm working on plant bumblebee interactions, although pollinators can be all kinds of different species. And I'm quite excited about where that work might take me. And I've also started looking at plant-soil interactions, so interactions with the roots of the plants and the microbial communities in the soil. And that, I think, is really interesting and also really important, because we often neglect what's going on in the soil. But for plants to grow and to produce food, soil is basically the medium that you grow plants in, and it's really, really important. I'm quite concerned at the moment about the level of funding in environmental research, and particularly things that sort of address environmental agricultural research. At the moment we're experiencing sort of really wet periods and really dry periods, and for crops to be able to sustain that kind of extreme weather, they need to be resilient to lots of different things. And we know from natural systems that more diverse systems tend to be more resilient to external stresses. So I've started working a little bit with some agricultural companies, so mainly seed producers, and this is something that I'd actually like to develop a bit more, so applying some of the ecological theory that I've been studying in more natural systems to agricultural seed mixes.